We are live and we are mid conversation. How about that? So, welcome everybody on the stream and also outside people watching. So, today we're doing Unpack the Stack, which is a stream that's actually quite technical. And today we have a really cool showcase. So, we have here Mauricio and Buba from Marahi Agency from Belgium. And so, guys, please tell the audience who you are, what you do, all the fun stuff.
Let's
Who
go.
wants to
All
go
right.
first?
We haven't decided.
Yeah.
I will go first. So my name is
Yeah.
Maurizio. As you can tell from the accent, I'm Italian, but I've been living in Belgium since 2011, and I've been working in the IT for more than 20 years, and half of my professional life has been spent in digital agencies. So
Mm.
I have a lot of experience with a lot of projects. I saw a lot of the evolution of the technology on the past years. But now, since the beginning of the year, I joined Mirai, which is a small boutique agency based in Brussels, a
Yeah.
digital agency too, where I share the responsibility of co-CTO, as we call ourselves, together with Buba.
What a good bridge. How about that?
Yeah. That's why it's better that he begin because then I don't have to do a lot of stuff. So for me, Buba. So kind of like Mauricio said, I'm working at Mirai, to kind of like digital agency. I'll be more like the technical guy in this presentation. So I have really also good understanding of all the landscape, I will say, at the moment on the front end, back end, and also DevOps. And I'm trying to help as much as possible to get the architecture really done and help the client, basically.
I really like the term co CTO because you're not alone in a CTO. And what I've learned being at agency myself for a long, long time, you have so many different CTOs, right? You have sales like CTOs, you have organization like CTOs, you have people who sit in the basement and come up with something amazing and you just have to change it, right? There's all these different
Yeah.
CTOs. So I'm really excited to see that you guys you're doing it together and you can cover more ground. Um,
Yes.
Tell me about that a little bit because I'm actually quite excited to hear how that works. How's the process?
For the our responsibility, how we share
Yeah,
our
exactly. How does
responsibility.
that work?
Well, it actually started a while ago because we've been working together for a number of years, and we
Mm,
have different backgrounds. I started as a developer, but then I'm not a developer anymore, not in the
mm.
professional sense of the term. Since like at least 6 or 7 years, I took different roles: solution architect. Then I became a full-fledged IT manager with different roles: VP of engineering, CTO. So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm more on what you say on the people management, strategic solution
yeah.
architecture kind of part of the spectrum, whereas Buba is much, much, much stronger on the hardcore technical parts, and he has a massive brain. So
The
he
massive
doesn't go
brain.
in the basement. He doesn't have a basement, I believe, but
Not
he
yet.
kind of abstracts himself for a night or two, and then he comes up, and then something magic happened.
I love that combination. That's actually cool. And we'll probably see your two roles today also on how we want to explain stuff. So the stack we will look at, of course, I'll let you guys talk about it a bit more. But as far as I got it, and I'm pretty excited about this because again, I worked at agency for a long time and we tried to do what you guys have done. And we never succeeded because it's always too busy and then there's a new client or there's too many developers on the bench that can actually not build such a thing like you did. And now you guys did it and you're using uniform, and that makes me excited. And of course, maybe Mauricio, you can start with your presentation and actually kind of tell us what that stack is and how that serves your customers and what problems you were seeing, things like that. Because I
Yes.
don't think I can do it justice by just trying to explain it. We just have to see it, and then we'll dive into the code with Booba after. So let me just put that on the screen for you. All right.
So you should see the slides by now. So
Yes.
this is the
Exactly.
title of a talk that we gave together with Buba a while ago at one big event that happened here in Brussels. It's called the FOSDEM. It is about open source technologies,
Mm,
where we presented what we call a practical approach to build an open and evolvable digital experience platform. Why we decided to go with that title? Well, the problem that we've been facing for let's face it, a number of years now, is that when we approach clients, especially clients that have a pretty diverse kind of landscape and a certain complexity of their technical landscape, the scenario boils down pretty much always to the same kind of configuration. You have different tools that have been layered out over time. So you got a CRM, you got a CMS, you got different kind of platforms that have been integrated. And then there is the user experience that this company wants to provide to their customers, the client or the users. And they normally want to activate something that is not there yet. So they call us, we come in and they say, look, but this CRM is going to stay there. We want to change our CMS. We want to add an e-commerce. And by the way, we would like to have a bit of personalization platform, for example. So we come there, we map the landscape, and then one of the first challenge that we have is, of course, trying to make sense of all these things and design an architecture or a digital landscape, a to-be digital landscape that would make sense for the client, that is both sustainable financially on the investment that they're going to make, but that is also, it's not going to require them to redo the whole work 2 years from now, because then it would be wasted. So basically what we see is that you can, when you approach this kind of problem, you start to have different kind of challenges that comes in. One of the first challenges, what we call the problem, is that you have this landscape. You may have a CMS, an e-commerce platform, a search engine, or a CDN, and then you want to aggregate content coming from all this stuff into a modern front-end user experience. So you see there is Next, there may be Nuxt there. We have clients who actually have this kind of landscape where they have different frameworks that they use for different channels in the front-end technology. They may have React Native, for example. And one of the problems is that they need to aggregate into this experience data that are coming from different pieces. So you start to connect these dots, and then you have a problem on how to make this work in a sustainable way. So a bit of the meme that is on the right side is that you have modularity, the modules are there, but they don't necessarily fit together nicely, you know.
Exactly.
So you're left with the problem of orchestration that you need to solve, and this is a bit what is in the link that we put down on the bottom right. Is this postulate of the conservation of complexity. You don't just eliminate the problem, you just try to abstract it and move it somewhere else, but this problem still exists. So this is one of the things that we faced as a problem over and over again, also in very complex projects for the retail sector. For example, this is a thing, especially big retail players that have gone internationally, that they need to sell with different kind of e-commerce engines and personalization depending on the country where they sell. You have this problem a lot. So what we found is we discovered that Uniform was working on this kind of problem space, and when we talk with you guys, we say, oh, that's kind of magic. That's what we've been trying to do by building our own bits and pieces of orchestration. This is finally an approach that seems to work, you know. And we kind of fell in love not just with the tool, but also with the paradigm that was adopted, where the idea was not, you may have all sorts of systems, we're going to connect it magically and it's going to work. It's not as simple as that. It's like there's a pattern where you take care of the orchestration, but you also take care of the composition and the data enhancer. You separate those kind of responsibility because you want to have the right level of cohesion. And then if you apply this kind of paradigm, then the platform is going to do all the heavy lifting for you, and you will be able to connect all the system and swap them in the future and accommodate new needs. And this is going to work over the long run. So we said, nice, this is great, actually. And we started to tinker a bit with Uniform and to experiment that with existing platform that we were managing at the time. But then as soon as we got there, then a second problem came up, which is the problem of the arrow that is identified there on the bottom part.
This is a very good picture, dude.
Yes. But that's a bit like, it captures a bit the feeling that you have when you approach this kind of problem. You have a set of tools, and you're only as agile or as fast as the least agile or the slower link of your chain, you know. So once you've solved the problem of orchestration and composition, you're still left with a certain complexity that you have on the front end. where ideally you would like to have the same kind of modularity, the same kind of high cohesion and low coupling that you want to have in your backend, So it's a bit like having a bicycle and not having the right wheel to put over there. So we started to approach this kind of problem. We started to scout. This was a lot of technical work that was done behind the scenes by Buba, by the way, that is going to show to you in a second how it works really at the code level. But the idea is that basically the problem that you're trying to solve is that you do have a set of components in your front end. You normally, in an ideal scenario, have a design system. You want to have those components to be managed, to be modular enough so that you can give them to your team or your teams and that they compose your user interface. And then also, why not being able to deploy them on different kind of channels, regardless of whether these are done in this or that technology, because this is also something that happens on especially big companies or established companies. You may have layers of stacks that were built over time, and the organization doesn't necessarily want to go through the hassle of rewriting things just because this way you will have a modular user interface. And also because, let's face it, the landscape is a bit hectic at the moment. It seems like 2015 all over again, where you have a framework that is coming up every other day. So it's not
I'm
even
missing
a thing.
Astro in your list a little bit.
Yes,
it's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
So
you basically just are creating a product on top of Uniform with something in between that you can serve all your customers with, essentially, right?
I'm looking at Buba. I'm not sure that we would call it a product yet.
Yeah, it's not kind of like a product. I see it like more as a toolkit. Like
So
really...
just so you know, we have Elian, one of the maintainers of Astro, in the chat. So I had to just go there.
Yeah, that's why I saw it like, no worry. We will speak about Astro because Astro fits really well in this kind of stuff on the modularity.
Exactly. Anyway, sorry, Mauricio, go for it.
There will be a shout out later for the guys of Astro. So the idea is coming back to what I was saying, is that, okay, why can't we try to reproduce the same kind of philosophy of modularity in the front end layer of the stack too? And that's what we found. We came across Mitosis, which is a library that has been developed originally by the team that builds Builder.io, which is one of the numerous CMS that is available, headless CMS that is available on the market. And the promise of Mitosis seemed really, really cool. The idea is you have components that you can write that are agnostic. You can write them on JSX, you can write them on TSX if you prefer TypeScript. And these components are going to be transpiled. It's actually a two-step process. There's a first step process that translates all these components into a JSON kind of configuration file. And then there is a series of plugins that take these files and are capable of translating them into first-class components on a number of framework. You see all the icons that we put there. There's really plenty of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea is that you can write once and you can deploy pretty much anywhere. So we said, this looks really, really cool. Is that true? Can we really come to a situation where we can write a component in an agnostic language and then deploy and save the time of actually translating it into different framework? And that's what we started to work on.
So just for clarity, I'm thinking, before you go on to the next one.
Yes.
So can I imagine you have a Mirahi NPM repository where you just have, for a certain customer, you have a bunch of base components, or maybe not even for a customer, it's just yours. And then when you actually want to use these components, you compile them a certain direction, let's say Vue.js, then you put them in Nuxt, and then you don't really care about the NPM package anymore? Or is that in a set up a different way?
No,
or maybe Buba, you'll show that later.
Yeah, that's the
you
goal,
might jump the gun
basically.
here.
That's the goal, basically, to have like the base component that we have, and then we compile them, and then we take that as a source code, and then we can diverge if you want, basically, from the client, because all clients are unique, have their rules, their customization, so we don't block them in our way of thinking, just to kind of like speed up the development at the start.
Because I can imagine if you have some very complicated Vue.js stuff with, slots and like things moving with events and emits, you're not going to do that with Mitosis. I can imagine that will be crazy.
Not actually, yeah. If you do it, I will say it's doable, but you will lose too much time going into Mitosis,
Exactly.
trying to make it right like you want, than going directly to VGS and write it. So
Exactly. That's what I would do. But we'll see later on how that would actually show, because I think you can just override something
yeah,
and do it
that's it.
just
Yes.
yours, right? Yeah, this
Yeah,
is why
that's
this is so strong. It's
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. And this is actually a good segue to actually, I think my last slide before we dive into the code, because the idea is that, okay, the promise is really nice, but then we know that in reality you have different cases when you take your page and you break it down into components. You know that you can categorize those components into a certain level of interactivity. There are certain
Mhm.
components that are pretty much static, other components that need to interact with different part of the pages, that need to interact with the backend. So you know that you reach pretty soon certain edge cases which are not really translatable into an agnostic components, because that's where the different frameworks start to diverge, because they have different
Exactly.
philosophy, these different approaches. But we said, okay, it's actually not really that bad. The idea is that you have always the Pareto principle, you have the 80-20 and the Yagni principle for the developers. You ain't gonna need it. You know that if you take a sample page from an e-commerce website, this is what we see on the slides on the right,
Yeah.
and you break it down into components, 70 to 80% of the thing that you see on the page are things that are supposed to be rendered once, and then they stay as they are for the duration of the session. So these are, for all intents and purposes, static components that just need to be rendered.
It's going to be 95% of all components can be rendered like this. Maybe more.
Maybe
Yeah,
more, maybe more. It actually depends, because the more you're on a catalog browsing kind of thing, if we stay on this idea of e-commerce, well, some pages you have very few interactions, and
Exactly.
as an e-commerce you may actually benefit from everything being rendered once and pretty fast. So for those, mitosis seems to be a really good option. But
Yeah.
then the more you go into the interactivity, well, you also have an escape route that you can take, which is this override concept that Buba is going to show in a second, where you can say, okay, for these kind of things, these are exceptional. You pass back control to the framework, and actually, if you have a component that need to be deployed in Vue and in React, well, then of course you're going to have to develop this component in Vue and in React according to the proper paradigm, the proper store
Yeah.
system or paradigm that you use. But still, you retain control over the majority of the components that you write once and you deploy everywhere. So this is a bit where we are at the moment. As Buba said, we are experimenting this because it's a project. So the next goal is to apply it on a real world project, because it seems really promising. But
if I
that
can,
was basically it
if I can come
from,
back on the previous one, so I will keep this
yes.
one. So just to add a bit on it, and mostly for the Astro people. So if you look at this page and with all the things that's coming with server component in React and in Next.js, so basically you can really see how you should really put, I will say, the focus, like all the things that need interactivity, that need really like add business value, you put the specificity on it, and all the rest just have to stay static, because you get then performances. You don't just rerun everything again. Like if you are working in React with the iteration, if all the quick people will be like no iteration anymore. So
Yeah,
voila.
exactly.
But voila, voila. That's the good thing that we could have, and literally the reflection that we have, it's how we will split this kind of way of doing. And to coming back what you said at the beginning, if we look at this, we can really focus on creating, I will say, layout component, if I can say like that, to construct the page in Mitosis. And then like this button, like for the add to cart and so on, that have basically the business logic, because these bring the value and the money. So then you
Yeah.
write it on the specific one, and then you end up with kind of on the maintainability. It's easier for you because you focus on what's bring the value and the money directly, and not lose time on like handling all these things and so on, and voila.
And so
And
can this also render to like native web components or just HTML?
they have React Native support and so on for some stuff. I don't try it yet. But and what's really nice, because on this reflection, I like it because I don't know if you saw Storefront UI V2. It's come
Yeah,
like
they just came out with that.
voila, and it's kind of we are going in this direction. And like
Mm,
I will say for the coming years, being, I will say, frameworks centrics, it's bad for me because you should be really open. You should be really look at all the other frameworks that are doing because you will learn from them and so on. So if you look at the
yeah.
Tanstack query, they went headless UI. They are going headless. Chakra UI.
Yeah,
They
I did a stream with the guys from Chakra View here,
yeah.
and we used the headless part first, and then we attached a Chakra front end to it. Holy moly, that's a different thing, but that
Yeah.
is amazing because it
And
gives you all this accessibility, the rules, all the things. You can just kind of script it. It
yeah,
was a bit of a brain dump for me. I had to quit, but it's very interesting.
yeah, and literally what he released and like Zag and so on, we are experimenting
Mhm.
with it because then
Yeah, we
thanks to
used
all this,
Zach. It was really cool.
and it's really nice because you end up with one thing, you separate the logic and the display. So now you can go on any frameworks and bring this accessibility and not be like something that we put aside, that we do at the end because we don't have time.
Which we
So
always used to do. I had
voila.
developers in my team cry because I had forced them the accessibility. It was really funny.
Voila, it's not easy, but then with all this library, like all the stuff that's coming now, we can, I will say, we don't have any excuse anymore not put accessibility since the beginning because you really have all the pieces that are available for you, and you don't need to invest on one
Yeah.
frameworks and stay with it. You can go really now on any framework. So you learn Zag, good. You can reuse it everywhere. And I try to integrate like Zag at Mitosis. I didn't succeed yet
Yeah.
because I have to do some modification on the compiler. But I think it could be really interesting to do and so on. So now I will switch on the code to show you a bit how we
Yeah,
on the
sure.
stuff there.
So I'm going to give you back control. Normally,
So we need to actually put this one on the screen. As a marketing person, I'm here for emotional support. What we know
Thank you,
that
Charlotte.
because marketing people have the highest threshold for pain I've ever seen in teams. Like they just deal with the crappy DXPs that force you to think a certain way and then like ask you developers, hey, fix it. And yeah, I don't have time to sprint, and they keep going and they're still successful. So big shout out
true.
to the marketers here.
Yeah,
Anyways,
man. And try to make their life easier, actually, I will say. That's all
yeah,
the thing
same
that
with
we want.
uniform, right? We're
Yeah, that's
hoping to
good.
be very nice for developers, but also very nice for people who are doing marketing or content creation. It's always kind of a mix of both.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're looking
So,
at something that looks a little bit like Tailwind.
yeah, Tailwind's love, Tailwind.
Yes, we know.
Everything, everyone hate and love. I don't know which size you are, but okay, it's okay. Everyone, we just take one because, voila, I'm not really the good CSS guy, so voila, bear with me if you see some CSS glitch. I'm sorry. I try really to focus on component. So
Yes,
basically
of
here
course.
is just to show you like a simple page that we build with uniform. This one
Also, this is running from uniform actually.
from uniform in dev
Cool.
mode. So for the speed, don't bother. It's not the real speed because I'm doing in development mode. So I don't want to hear like, yeah, it's slow. No, it's not slow. It's just I'm compiling every time
Yeah,
inside. So
exactly.
voila. And here, this one, it's running Next.js. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I will switch to like here. I will show you the code basically, but let me quickly. I will switch on the. I have to quickly exit from that because I have to show the what is the okay this one because I was looking for the correct one. Okay, so this
So
one I
you're
will
just
close it.
talking to yourself right now, but we'll go with you. We're all good.
Yeah, voila. I'm a developer. So here I will close everything running on the next one. So now I will switch on next. So basically I take the same code, the same
Oh, you
thing.
have a few terminals open where you can
Yeah,
just
I have
run the same
because
thing. Yeah, cool.
yeah, I'm running the same thing on the 4200
Okay, so you're
and
in
so on.
330, so you're very new. I like
Voila.
it.
Yeah, I love Next Tree. They're really and everything that's going there, it's really wonderful.
Yeah, it's
They
working well.
It's really
It's a bit
working
of a
well.
black box when it comes to error handling, but they're working on it.
Yeah, yeah, because sometimes you're like, it's break. I'm like, okay, let's remove the cache and try
Exactly. I
again.
just removed the next folder. That's my way. That's my go-to.
Same thing. And then you're like, okay, it works. So I will refresh
Oh,
the
this is
page
next now. How about that?
and next, and I hope because I will not get the demo effect and so on. Same thing. Voila. And here we are running on next. Voila. We are using the same code, going to the same backend with the same component, and I can switch between next and next. It works.
That's very cool. So you
Voila.
wrote the code once, but you just compiled to a different channel,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
next or whatever.
Voila.
And
Okay.
this is like, you put some AI and we're out of a job now.
Yeah, we'll see. But
No,
actually,
probably not.
with Mitosis, I'm really curious how this, I will say, ChatGPT and so on, because it's the rules to write Mitosis is really strict. So maybe you can end up with something interesting, I will say, because
Oh, Alien has actually a good question here. So what about the integrations with something like Nuxt DevTools or React DevTools? I think it just works, right? Because you're
yeah,
literally running Nuxt now with
yeah,
few
it's really
components. Everything
next. Yeah,
works.
I didn't, I think, install the view one, but I can
Well,
install it
actually,
and show
Nuxt
what.
now has on-screen in-browser
Yeah,
DevTools as well.
it's
But that just
literally
works because it's just Nuxt, right?
it's a Next application. Here you can see I'm just running my Next application. Nothing
Yeah,
changed.
exactly.
I try
Yeah,
to stay, and the goal with all the reflection that we have, it's to stay as close as possible of how the framework is working, because
yeah.
we don't want to change it because tomorrow we want to leave. So we don't want to put like a string to people and keep them linked to us. No, the goal, if tomorrow they get the code it's to them and they can use it. Okay. So I
Yeah.
will show you a bit in detail. So basically, I'm using NX. I will zoom a bit view. I will go on presentation mode. Okay. So basically, on the left side, I'm using NX. So basically, I'm really a big fan of NX Dev, basically for all the monorepo stuff. It's really cool. You have a lot of plugin. It's really plug and play. You just come and so on. We use also Turbo. You can do the same with Turbo. It works. We just choose one because voila,
Yeah,
we
I think
cannot.
at Uniform we use Turbo now.
Voila. So and we choose this one, but voila, it's easy. You can choose what you want. So basically, why we go with monorepo because it's easier for us to share code and so on, and share all the, we'll say, modules and component library, because I don't want to push everything on NPM. It's a mess to handle. So
Yeah, especially locally, if you can just quickly link to something due to your monorepo, it's much easier, I guess.
voila, yeah, it's really
Yeah.
easier and so on.
Yeah.
So basically, the structure that they use is apps and libs. You've used libs for the library, and we have what we call the core. The core basically where we put the Mitosis one. So why core? Because it's the basic for everything else that you will come on UI, React, and Vue. Okay, so how Mitosis is working is basically through a configuration file. I know I gain a configuration file, but everyone create a configuration file. We need it. So basically, I will not go in the detail, but the most important, it's basically just this part. It's an export where you give him the file where you write it. The convention is .ly.tsx. Okay, I will show it after. Where you would like to have the override, basically the path of component that you don't want to handle by Mitosis, but you write it on your framework of choice. The target that you would like to use, so where you would like to compile. And then here you have some option that you would like to use. Like, for example, if you want to change some stuff, transpiling, bypassing stuff, so you have access to the compiler. It's basic, but to do the job if you would like to do some fancy stuff. So, for example,
Yeah. So if you need to do something in feed here or some
for,
stuff, you can.
for example, here you can see for the Svelte one, if you would like to do, they have like a special metadata called use metadata, where you could provide what they call the element tag. So to help you basically to handle stuff, like for example, putting a Svelte element is the same thing than the view component library. The view component dynamic, basically, if you would like to have a dynamic component, just put the has or the is and then do the job. So
Oh yeah,
basically,
exactly. Because I can
voila.
imagine sometimes in Vue, let's say for my own website, in Vue, I have a video player that is actually a native web component that I can just use anywhere. It's not actually a Vue component, but it's a custom HTML tag. So
Yeah.
that kind of thing you would configure in here.
Yeah, you can configure it and tell him like, actually, when you meet that, basically do that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Like for example, I did something like that. Like for example, here you can see when you meet SRC set like that. For some of them, you do it like that because
So
on
this is some
React,
JSX stuff.
yeah, well, it's really JSX stuff to handle. For example, this one, it's one of the stuff that I have to fix for Vue. When I meet like a dangerous set in HTML, I
Yeah.
tell him actually in Vue, it's inner HTML, and then
Oh, really?
and that's it.
Yeah.
And then he do it's small stuff like that that we should push that back on the compiler, but just small stuff, and then I remove it and it works, no problem. But
That's
voila,
cool.
voila. This is basically the configuration. You run these things, you run the compile, and then let's go on the SRC. So the SRC here, I have like a big of structure and so on, but the most important one is the component. Okay, component. You can see all these components are already written, and all these components handled by Mitosis. Okay.
Okay.
The convention is .light.tsx. Every file that you write that will be taken by the compiler. Simple. Okay. And I will show you two kind of component, like the one or three, I will say. The ones that are simple, I will say basically just a layout component, display. So for example, take the collection grid here. Simple one, just HTML, basic tailwind, nothing fancy there. And then here you can see I use the slot of uniform just to put it, and then it will pass it through. Then you have the card list, same thing, simple
I
component.
think in a while you should explain what a slot and uniform is, but let's continue with this
Yeah,
first.
I will explain it. Then you have the last one, like the collection card. Basically here I'm reserving props and then just mapping it, okay? So this is simple component, nothing fancy there. And basically, if you have to write that, it will not take you a lot of time to do it on every frameworks, but you have to learn all these frameworks. So
So this
here,
is just JSX, the
just
same as React.
JSX, React, and then this will be compiled. So if I take this one, on the output here, it will be compiled in React. So here already begin to think about client and server component that's coming in the React world. Big
Yeah.
mess, but well, you have to handle
Well, I
it.
think we just at Uniform we adapted our SDK that it works with server components and personalization. It's gonna be awesome.
I love you guys. Nice.
Yeah, we already did it, but we need to do a release. We're releasing every day now, so it should be easy. Should be
Cool.
soon.
I want to try that because I want to play with. I play a lot with server component with uh, Hydrogen before they moved to Remix.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So that's my. Literally, I learned everything throughout Hydrogen because it was really nice, really cool. And then they
And
switched.
then
I'm
they
like,
moved, which
I
is
was like,
interesting.
shit.
I kind of want to know why they moved, why they didn't want to stick with it. But that's
I
maybe
will.
for another stream.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's not too easy,
Yeah,
or frankly
yeah,
speaking. So here
exactly.
we can see he compile this component in simple JSX for basically for React. It just
It's almost the
JSX,
same, right?
almost the same and so on. So now let's see in Vue here component. Let's on the grid. So here you get normal component. That's literally native component Vue. Okay, you can
It's
also
the
this is the
options
old
API,
way.
is it not?
It's the option API, but you could compile it to the setup API.
Okay, okay.
I just to take the default one, but you could do it. It's just a
Hmm.
configuration. So simple. It's a valid one. Nothing fancy, and anyone can write that. Okay. So now let's go for something a bit more complex, I will say. I will go for the header. So here on the header, basically, it's a big one, like you can see. Voilà.
Hmm.
Voilà. Five. Okay.
That's a pretty impactful
Voila.
component.
It's just because I didn't break it in component because laziness a bit, I will say, but voila. I should.
Oh,
Voila. But basically, it's a kind of a component. And then you will see we introduce something called uStore. uStore is basically the hook that I will say Mitosis provide you that you have to use to be able to transfile to use state or to use a computed or data if you're using the I will say the option
options
API,
API.
or
Yeah.
if you're using a ref, if you're using the setup and so on. Okay, so
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
create a hook that you need to write so they can know how to compile to the others. Okay, and then at the moment, and to show you like the complexity and why it's complex to write a compiler, you cannot change the name state. it's a limitation at the moment, but it's it can be improved. But at the moment, if you remove state, it will break. Okay.
Okay.
And then you just basically we get an object that you could literally put a function there. You could put links like getter and so etc. And this will be compiled to the correct way in React View and so on. Okay. Then here, and this is complex because I will begin to go deep on some stuff. You see here, I'm using a transition. You say, oh, that's something complicated to write, handling transition, handling dialogue, and so on. And how we do that is basically we introduce headless UI because we wanted to push to see how I could literally put like complex component inside and get the DX that I want, like on the UX. I don't want to lose anything about UX and DX. So, and how to do that is basically we use headless UIs, but next step is basically it's a Zag basically for us to try because Zag has more stuff. So basically here, how you could do that, you have the notion of override. Basically, what you could do, you can create component here, for example, headless dialog light, and basically this, it's an empty component, okay? So when you import it, if the compile doesn't work, you will get something like that, like, oh, this shit is not working, okay?
Yeah.
But then you have what you call the override. This is the folder, and you have to follow the path that you have in your basically the structure. And then here for React, I'm just telling him basically when you meet the structure based on the output. If you look at here, except the client because it's me adding it. Here you can see you have headless dialog. Okay, so basically here I'm just importing the headless UI and exporting it. Okay. Same thing for view. Well, okay. And thanks to that, I'm able to bring a complex API, complex component that is outside, inside my Mitosis. And it works because I don't need to go and re-implement this complex one. Imagine you have a calendar, like a big grid and so on that you have already invest a lot of money in. I will not tell you like, hey, actually crash that and rewrite it. No, you have already invested in it, but you can literally just import it and tell to Mitosis, okay, actually, every time someone imports this file, replace it at compile time by the other file.
Yeah, that's what the override is doing essentially.
Voila. Basically just switching file.
And I feel like I'm back in college, man. I love this.
Okay, it's really nice. And I like the way that they handled it because they just said, it's a simple file. Don't think too much. Don't add complexity. Just give me the file and the export, job done.
APIs based on file are really nice. Just like with the routes and things. This is just nice. People get it.
And then here we can see basically I'm invoking the transition root, dialog component. So if I show you a bit.
So what does this transition look like in Vue and React?
I will show you. Like here, if I click here, do you see?
Oh, that's this one. This is opening the dialog.
Opening the dialog and so on. And do you see I have my beautiful animation coming from the transition. And basically on Vue, it's using it will be using the transition root and basically the component from headless UI, and the headless UI in Vue using the native transition component from Vue.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're on React, it's doing its own stuff. So you stay basically natively.
But the headless UI just gave it to you essentially.
Voila.
So you didn't have to write it in Mitosis, which is you don't want to be doing that. So that's cool.
I don't want to be doing that. I don't have the expertise, I will say, to do that. No. I let that to this kind of library that handle that. And literally like same thing for Chakra UI and so on. All the complexity of like accessibility and so on, performances, localization, leave that to people that know how to do it and do it really well, and focus on what you bring value inside. Okay. So here again, use the same thing. I will show you a small stuff basically here. So we'll go again and so on. So voila, it's basically just using the headless UI component. And then here, one thing different. You're like, what is this thing? So basically, I said it's kind of JSX, but they copy
not really.
Not really, they copy from Solid. Basically, if you have done a bit of Solid have like this kind of like kind of directive if you're an Angular world or component that you can reuse.
Yeah, this
Basically,
this
to
looks
have
a little more native to me, coming from the old school
oh,
PHP stuff. We used to do
correct.
this with like Smarty. Oh boy, I'm showing my age there.
Yeah, but basically it's that like you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
like component that you can reuse, and why they put that because it help the compiler to be able to know
yeah. It's
how to
much nicer and
translate it.
much easier.
Voilà.
Yeah,
Because if you look at JavaScript, we have like a lot of way to write a for loop. We
yeah,
have the for, we have the for each, we have the map. Voila. And if they have to the compiler have to handle all these cases, it's a increase of complexity and
yeah.
maintainability for them. So they say, okay, let's simplify and put that. So basically, it's just have an each here, and then you get a function that you can return your component. Same thing for the if. So if you are in React, it's just a if, but if you're in Vue, it's a if or show, depending if you would like to keep everything
Exactly. Yeah.
inside. So here to have a show, you have the when and the else, and then you handle it. Okay, that's it. So just this kind of different stuff that you have.
I think this show with the when they had stuff like this in like mustache templating. Remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah. It it circle back. We come back every time. It's like
Yeah, we have a cycle in our world,
yeah,
right?
voila. It's literally like Inception, like the up and you come back every
We're
time and
back to
start.
server now. Anyways,
Voila.
yeah.
Kind of and voila. So basically that's the big difference. One small thing to show you, I would like to show you, it's then where we would like to push a bit and then where we go with Astro and so on. You can see here I'm using an atom basically. So when I'm in mobile, okay, I will show you here. I will switch in mobile. Let me increase the size. Voila, I will move this one to the right. Okay. So here you see I'm able to open and close, but these two components are not in the same, doesn't share anything. So how,
Oh,
what I
there's
will,
actually two components
yeah, it's two
rather than
components.
one
And
that's
yeah,
responsive.
and the
Okay.
goal, they are, at the moment I put them together, but the goal that I would like to show, it's imagine this thing, it's your cards. Like here, I didn't implement it, but I put begin.
Yeah.
It's your card. We have a shared state. Okay. And then basically I'm using what you call an atom. It's coming from a library that we use, not this one, that's the store. So again, I use the same thing override. So I go here on React, component, store here. And then here I use NanoStore. And Island should know about it because they put it on the Astro because we use also Astro at Mirai. So basically,
Okay.
this is a store, basically an atom that's work for React, Vue, and same thing. It's headless. You can use it, and what's really nice, it's based on this atom. You can reuse it and share it between components
So
that
this
are
store in that case, it's just keeping state essentially, right?
voilà, keeping
Yeah.
state
Okay.
outside,
Yeah.
and you can use multiple frameworks and share the same state. So
That's
imagine
very
now
nice.
I'm using Astro, and I have like a React a view somewhere, and then I have my card button here. Imagine the add button is in Svelte. When I click on it, it will go and update it automatically, and everything will be shared. Okay, and here I was able to show it using Mitosis. It works basically. It's not perfectly fine because why it's I didn't succeed yet to make it work on the use nano store because basically the use store also has a name. It's clash
Oh yeah.
automatically.
Yeah.
I screw myself basically. I'm like, guys, no, why did you use that? The compiler will read it and I will be screwed. So it's not
Yeah. Exactly.
yet not yet completely linked. But imagine tomorrow I can just import my, I will say all the hook that I have written that are kind of like agnostic. So I can go
Mhm.
on any kind of client, any project, and just say, okay, you would like to do add to cart for Shopify? Fine, let's go. Is
Yeah.
that and then imagine and link it to uniform. I
Exactly.
have my stuff, I have my all the API that are working. So I kind of have everything linked. Okay. So now I will show you quickly so basically here you can see the store, and that's the most complex one that kind of I have inside. And then here we have the uniform slot. Again, use the same logic of override because uniform support React and Vue. Okay, fine. I come on the right side and then I say, okay, when I'm using Vue, basically, I'm just importing the uniform slot.
Oh, you just
From Vue.
literally return that one. Yeah, of course.
That
Because
one.
we have feature parity between Vue and React with the same props. So for you, it's really easy to do it this
Yeah.
way.
For me,
Yeah.
it's like if you work it in Java a long time ago, they used to say people, it's a bad practice now, but they say what they call interface development.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah,
you
yeah.
put interface everywhere, and then you
Yeah,
expect to
yeah.
use
But
it.
you see it in TypeScript also sometimes now.
Voila, and it's good and bad. You have to find the good spot inside and not
Yeah.
just go
But for
put in.
SDKs, you want things to be always the same. So
Voila.
interfaces fit here. Yeah.
Well, it's fit and it's really nice because then we can just use it, no issue, and then use it. Okay, so this is basically the Mitosis side, and then what we have written into Inxdev is basically I put a watcher that will watch everything that change on this file. It will compile to the output, and
Mhm.
after that, it will watch this file and then create a library for me. Here,
Oh,
it's
so every time you do a change, it will recompile React
yeah,
and Vue. So you
automatically
work in
for me.
Mitosis always, and it just
Yeah,
recompiles. So this is why it might be slow when you do a change.
Voila, because I have to handle all the fancy stuff, I will say. But voila, that's the bit the goal on handling all these things. So here we can see on the core, basically here, it's adding and updating stuff. So for example, if I put a space here, you look at the change, and then it will,
Oh, so it isn't smart. So it does change one thing. So it changes
yeah.
the delta. Okay, cool.
And the Mitosis one, no, and then it's on link and do
Oh,
it.
it
So
actually
it
goes. Yeah, okay.
well, and then get it and like, okay, rebuild everything and so on, and we get everything on the copy here. So basically for React, I get client here, all my component already done correctly, and then I just have to do a client and then re-export what I need.
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
Magically done, and voila, same thing for Vue.
So you are generating that file for the exports, or
No,
Mitosis is doing
not
this.
no, this one I write it by hand because I want to know what I would like to export and not.
Yeah,
So
okay. Because
I
in
have the
Nux they do it automatically, right? But you
yeah, and
don't.
next
Here you need to know exactly what
yeah,
you're
I
doing.
need to know which he's doing, but actually you could literally do it because the one thing that I would like to do an automation, but we could. Like here, same thing for Vue. I'm just importing, exporting everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's move when we have now our two library. So now let's move to the fun part and next. So basically I create two applications. So you have integration here. It's basically we are working with the team, the uniform team to play with integration and Storyblock, for example. We are playing with it because we are using Storyblock. Really a nice CMS you would like to try, guys. Really cool. So let's focus on next here. And actually, I will show Storyblock a bit after. So here, basically, I'm just have a standard next application that I set up with uniform. Okay, so here we have all the configuration from uniform and so on. I will not, I could go inside, but I will need your help, team, to be
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
that I
sure.
explain it really well.
But before we
So
go into the code of uniform, let's show uniform first and
yeah,
then the code. But let's
let's.
continue on the next app first, though.
Okay, so I will remove that, close that, and then come back here. So basically, on the next app, in my page, basically, I create a demo stuff, but the most important file is this one. So basically, this one is just importing, exporting a get static props. I'm not yet on the app there. I'm coming, not
Yeah,
yet done, but coming there. So basically here is the configuration provided by Uniform, the with Uniform get static props. Nice function that you just give some configuration and do all the magic for you
exactly.
inside. So you give him what is the param, if you
Oh,
have
you're
some
using
requests.
the ID one. Oh, I've not seen that. That's nice.
Yeah, because I use ID, Slug is good, but because I switched, I forgot to change it, but it's okay. Then we have the preview, have a callback to handle your enhancer. Basically, an enhancer is how I could explain it simpler. So imagine you have multiple sources, okay? And what's really nice with Uniform, it don't store the data. It only store the reference of this data that you have selected from your CMS, your DAM, your PIM, anything. And then when you receive the object, you can run an enhancer, basically a function behind that will take all these IDs and then replace them with the correct data that you would like to from your CMS and so on. So thanks to that, you get really fresh data no link like that until the end of time, because if something changed, just refresh your page, it will be fetched again. And it helps you to reintegrate and have this loss coupling, I will say, thanks to I would say, thanks to Uniform. So you don't need to have like this coupling that you have with other system where they store everything and then you end up like, okay, the cache of this one is not broken and so on. Okay.
Yeah, and the interesting bit here is that if you have people that are diehard backend developers, you can just give them this enhancer business and let them do it on their own microservice. And they just take the data, do whatever. You just say, I need these props, and they just output it. And so you don't lose people that are diehard backenders in this, for example,
Yeah.
if you have a
And
big organization. But you can also just put the enhancers in your code here, as you have done it, I think.
yeah, that I did at the moment. But on Vue, I put it on a function just to show up a bit, but I'll show it. And then you have the
Yeah,
game setting
with
part.
Nuxt, it's quite nice to just use an API route for it.
Voilà. Yeah. And then you can do your mapping inside. So here we can see I have just returning a home page. So I'm getting the preview I will show you after. And then here you see simple uniform composition, give him the data. If you are doing contextual editing, I will show it on the editor. And then you use your slot here. So basically slot is a kind of like a placeholder where uniform can come and put a component inside for you. So you don't have to handle it and all this complexity of like structuring a page with multiple blocks inside. So this is handled thanks to the slot. Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe before we dive a bit deeper, for people who don't know all this stuff, essentially Uniform is not actually CMS, but what Uniform does, it has your design system, not actually the design files, but it actually has the representation of all your components. And you can make a page with all these components and assign data to them from any system that you want. And that's why you have slots, right? Because a component can have a subcomponent, which is a slot that you connect to one CMS. And then you get another component in the slot that you connect to another CMS. And then you use this enhancer that Booba was showing to actually query these systems and get the data in.
Yeah. And based on what you said, yeah, that's really nice. You don't store, you are only using the, I'll say, design system. And what is the design system is the library that I showed you before.
Exactly. You just showed the design system, essentially.
Voilà. Yeah. And then basically what you do, you import it, and then you have a mapping to tell Uniform. Basically, when I meet this object like type header that the marketer is using, basically render this component. And you will take the props, put it back, and then you have everything done. So here, This is the way of structuring everything. You register a component, job done. Okay. And then you run it, and then you end up with this beautiful page.
And you know what's funny about this? The components you wrote know nothing about Uniform. They don't care.
Yeah.
They're completely agnostic. So the only thing that you add is that little SDK with the enhancer and the slot.
Yeah.
But the components themselves don't care at all where the data comes from. So if you don't want Uniform, you just remove this and you're done.
Yeah,
don't do that, but you know what I mean.
Voilà, but that's really like also if
it's Uniform, a super light SDK.
It's an SDK. Basically, the only thing that my component, my design system know about Uniform is this slot.
Yeah,
all the rest, it's only props and configuration and mapping. So nothing changed.
And what's actually interesting, I'm not sure if you're going to show this for later, but in a few weeks, we are releasing something that makes this even easier, where you don't need the enhancers at all. Where we're actually, or you wanted to show it or not?
I will show it, I think, because that's the
mind-blowing thing, but it's coming later, so please stay.
Yeah, that's really the thing, like, wow, love it.
So you're going to get a lot less code even. But you'll show it later. Okay, cool.
So here again, I'll show you for the next one, and you will see why it's really powerful, because here, canvas, same logic.
Same thing, exactly.
Okay, then I go to my page, kind of the same page, only the thing, and literally, we were thinking with Maurizio sometime, like, maybe this could be also into the library, because at the end, it's the same code.
It's identical.
It's identical.
The only difference is that you have to add the resolve renderer here in Vue, and I'm not sure you have to do that in React.
I put it on React because it's doing it automatically, I think. But
exactly, because it's basically a provide inject in React. Here it's different, but it's a very small difference.
And except that you run this one, and basically This thing is just doing one thing, just to show you, because voila, it's basically calling this kind of the same hook with the
It's
same parameter.
essentially the get static props that you had in Next. That's what this one does, but it's a composable in Vue.
Composable, yeah.
Yeah.
And then to show the enhancer inside a function, basically here on the preview get or post here, basically I'm doing the enhancing here. So I receive the composition, call my enhancer and doing it here. So imagine here I would like to do some more mapping and so on, or maybe move that to a edge function, anything. I could,
Yeah,
because
so what
just the
people should
configuration.
know what an enhancer does is essentially if you select a component in Storyblock, Uniform only gives you the ID of that component. So the enhancer will give you a way to query Storyblock for that ID. You can make your own query and it gives you back the information. But the cool thing is you can compose with enhancers. So what you can do is if you get the raw data from the CMS, but it doesn't fit the props of your component, you can just add in the chain another thing that maps that data. It can be so powerful that you can add a dad joke in every property if you want
Oh
to.
yeah.
Like it goes really deep.
Uh,
And this is the one bit that is for most developers, it's not super easy. So that's why we came out with the new thing that Booba will show you later, where none of this is needed.
to to show a bit like what you explained, we did it for Storyblock
Oh,
basically.
you actually did it with Storyblock.
Yeah, I
Nice.
did it with Storyblock, and basically I do both. I did
Yeah,
the integration, and then we did the enhancer just to see
exactly.
showcase to people. So here we can see I create a rich text enhancer basically. It's coming because I discussed with Richard, you will have the option now to select an object. So maybe this will not be needed anymore actually. But well, at the moment I use the rich text, and basically what it's doing, I'm just getting initializing the Storyblock SDK,
Yeah.
doing a fetch based on the ID that I receive, based on if I'm preview draft or not, and I'm getting the content transformed to HTML. And based on the component here, I'm calling the rich text and getting back to HTML for me.
Yeah, and
And
so
if
this is
not,
the perfect example of an enhancer because from a CMS you just get JSON that represents rich text, but that doesn't work on your website. So you need to have some package from them probably to
yeah,
move that data from JSON to HTML, and that's what you do with enhancers. And so
yeah,
that might be the second or third step sometimes because
yeah,
if you did this with Contentful, our integration is a little bit cleaner.
yeah,
You just get ID, query the fields, clean up the fields, add the HTML, run.
yeah. And basically here, I'm just reusing the same SDK from Storyblock. So I'm
Yeah.
really using their tool just to connect them in this part. And then here you can see basically for this component here that I have, when I meet the description, I run this enhancer, and that's it.
Exactly, and this is like the other part of the Uniform SDK where our enhancer builder is really quite strong because you can attach data to a component, or for each little property you can change whatever you do with it, like remove all the spaces or
Yeah.
whatever you want. It's a little bit
And
crazy actually how far you can go with it.
oh yeah, that's really like you can do a lot of stuff. I do mapping inside. I try a lot. I wanted to see the limit, and you can do really good,
Oh
good
man,
stuff.
I've done some things with this that I'm not proud to show, but like my blog post, for example, on my website,
Yeah.
the HTML comes from Prismic, the metadata and the title come from Contentful.
Oh,
Because I
okay.
just use an answer to put them together. The
Yeah, to
content
link
editor doesn't
everything.
need to know.
Yeah, it's really cool. So, and it's a really powerful way of,
Maybe don't do that. Like, don't
yeah,
do what I say, just as I do. I don't know.
yeah, make it simpler, but voila, you have the power if you need to
Yeah.
link all the API that you have to link and so on. So it's okay. So now let's see a bit like how you could do that in the UI. So
Yeah,
basically
let's
here I'm
exactly.
showing you
Okay.
like story block. So basically I create like a content quickly where I have like some offers, and basically what you are seeing here, basically it's coming from story block here. I'm using basically just not the UI one. I like the visualization. I'm just using the form, and it's really nice and so on. It's
Yeah.
worked really well. Then here this is uniform. So I will show you quickly, but quickly explain you a bit how things structure. You have the content. It's where you will pay your content, basically. You have two things that I really like and I really love that you added it. The first thing, it's a project map. That's a new feature that's coming or already
So
available.
this one is already out
Okay.
recently. Yeah.
That's already out. And basically I see it like my sitemap of how you could create dynamically your page,
It
basically.
is, yes, exactly.
Voilà. And it's really nice because like on a lot of CMS, and if you work like on old WordPress, that's the marketer they want. That they want to be able to say,
Everybody wants a tree view, but when you're in a composable architecture with 5 different systems, there
yeah,
is no tree view because every
yeah,
system does something else. So Uniform kind of puts that together, and that's what this is.
yeah, and that's really nice because
Yeah.
then the marketer can just come, yeah, I want my page and my sitemap. Okay, it's there. Go and connect. And then basically here you connect what you call composition, and composition kind of like how I see it is like a component group that you can structure in a way to be able to display something.
Yeah, the easiest for people is to just see this as your page. Like your about page is a composition of things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a page, but that would go a bit deeper
Yeah,
because you can just
deeper.
add like you can actually have a composition which trusts 3 components that you inject in a WordPress website.
Yeah.
Don't do it, but you can.
Yeah, don't do it, but you can. And then you have the component and I will say the nice feature that I will show here is the data type. That feature for me that's really help. It's help you to bridge the gap between any API that you have, basically. So here I do some testing. So I connect the Shopify mock shop, basically. So what you see here, basically is coming from the API from Shopify. It's not mock data. Okay. So how you could do that? It's basically you can create what they call a data type based on the type. So here you can create integration if you want and so on. I didn't do it yet, but working on it for stuff. And then here you can create a new one, create a base URL, add some parameter for security and so on, like header, how you would like to interact with the things, the API. And then from that, you could create some request and handler that you can use. And what's really nice is you
That's
can
a
create
crazy query. What is happening?
yeah, you know GraphQL inline.
Oh no, this is inline GraphQL. No.
It's inline GraphQL.
Oh, this is somebody needs to screenshot this and send it to my CTO. You're gonna
No,
love.
I discussed with Richard. It's coming.
That's again, don't do this at home.
We
I
try
love it.
stuff, okay? We make it work. We try. You see until where, and it's coming because this is
So
Richard.
we actually have a Shopify API connection native in integrations, right? You don't have to do this.
Yeah, I know. But
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't wanted to create a shop. Basically, I was too lazy. I'm like, okay, they just released that. Okay, let's use that
Well, this
because I don't know.
works very well because after you show this, go to the integrations tab so people are not too afraid of this.
Yeah, no,
It's-
that's literally the edge case. Like for me, trying to push the limit, and really what you see here, it's like people trying to push the limit and see how they
yeah,
can
exactly.
integrate stuff and see, okay, why we trust like Uniform on the way that we handle stuff, or why we think it's a good tool because we really stress it a lot and see, it works really well. So here, the good thing also, you can create variable that you can literally, do you see here? That's the query. You see?
Oh, that's
And
again.
yeah.
No.
And the nice thing that I love, you can embed basically variable inside the strings and
Yeah,
then
that's how we
Uniform.
build it. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I really like it because then I can map variable to my GraphQL directly
So
and
essentially, people
dynamically.
that are watching this, we build Postman in Uniform,
Yeah,
and those become your data sources if we don't have a native integration. So if you wanted to go, let's say, I'm going to grab some stuff from the Notion database, but Uniform doesn't have a native Notion integration, you just do it like this. You connect to Notion and you have your data anywhere you want.
yeah. And Notion, or basically imagine a legacy
Yeah, or
API.
any
That
old school
uh,
thing that
also,
somebody built 10 years ago.
well, 10
You can
years
just connect it
ago,
here.
you have to use it because voila, it was
Yes,
there
exactly.
before that you are born. So you use it, and that's it. And basically, it helps you really well to connect all these things, and you can test everything based on the variable that you create here. For example, I can say I just want to get 3 data. Boom, give me the data here that I can see and check everything. And the nice thing with that is with this data, like Tim said, it's your source of data. Okay. Now this you can connect to component and composition. Okay. And I will show you that's really the mind-blowing way of, like we say, composability, because then you can connect everything, just create your API. Same thing here. I did it for Storyblock because we don't have yet a native one. So I'm like, yeah, okay, let's work on it and see how things can go. Same thing. I just use
Dude, I
it. Use
really love that you did this because Storyblocks, if you look at the editor later on, the content editor, it looks a lot like Storyblock. It's not
yeah,
like we copied them, it's just the native way this happens. But it also makes them not really a competition, but it looks similar. So there's
yeah,
no real integration because it kind of feels weird. People are not going
mhm,
to do the contextual editing in one place and the other. But
yeah,
we just built this thing and you integrate it with Storyblock without a problem,
yeah,
which is that makes it a little crazy, but it works
yeah.
really well.
Because like for me, I think people can, if they want to, it's not the same job, I will say. Like you have the CMS, and I think like if you want to connect everything and have one thing, okay. But if you want to like growing and adding like a PIM, adding all this stuff, then you go on the uniform side, and people
Exactly.
have to, not have to think like I will move everything. No, 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 no. You can just turn off the editor side and keep the form that I show here.
Exactly. And this is
So
why we, for example, we have the same integration with Sitecore. People can still use it because they used it for 10 years. They don't want to just move. But if
yeah,
you're modernizing, you can just inject it like this into Uniform and you can start moving forward, add
yeah,
another CMS later, change some properties, and you have moved, for
voila. So
example. Or never
and
move and pay a lot of
and
license fees, but you can.
yeah, and
Yeah,
frankly speaking, let's people like if you want to keep your CMS, keep your CMS. We don't. The goal is not to push you to change and so on. And we love your story block. We have already
Yeah,
data there, so why
it's
move
great.
actually?
Exactly. So do you
but
want to
that's
quickly?
another thing that
Sorry, Mauricio, go.
yeah, sorry, that's another thing that we loved about the approach is that actually you have technical challenges that you're trying to overcome, but you also have organizational
Oh, yeah.
challenge. In big organization, you don't necessarily want to have people move to another tool
Well,
because they're
yeah, you need
used
to
to.
train them again. That's crazy. You don't want to do
That's an
that.
investment, you know. So the
Exactly.
more you're decoupled also on that aspect, which is the organizational one, whereas you have your CMS, you have your system, you don't need to change anything about your workflow. You continue to do the stuff as you did yesterday, and then we take care of the rest. That's another
Yeah,
added value of an approach like this.
exactly. And it's very decoupled because, Buba, if you can go to the integrations tab for a sec,
Yep. Here.
like for example, here, there's like a lot of different things here that you can connect to. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, as a content editor, if you have the admin rights, you can switch out Storyblock for Prismic or for, whatever, Salesforce, like whatever. The code doesn't change. You can just
Yeah.
change the integration here, connect to different things in the editor, and the developer doesn't have to do much,
Yeah.
which is crazy awesome.
And that's the like the composability.
Exactly.
Switch, connect,
So
and yeah.
show us a page where you actually content edit, so people that watch this
Yeah.
understand kind of how do you now
Page.
connect that data to a component.
So here basically it's running. Well, okay, so this is the editor that you get when you are using. So it's a live editor. That's really nice because then you can change everything on live. I'm using a concept here. Let me this one. Okay, this one I think it's not a okay, it's a pattern. But basically here I'm using a concept of that's really nice. I really like in a uniform called pattern. Basically, you create reusable let's say blocks into your into uniform. So you don't want to repeat, for example, the header. You write it once, you save it as a pattern, and everywhere into your application on your content editing, you would like to put a header, just grab it, and then you
Yeah, so
change
you
it
don't
in
have to
one zone.
rebuild your menu every time because it's a
Voila,
composition or like it's a pattern, and
it's a
that
pattern.
pattern can also be a connection to a CMS that gives you
Voila.
some data. And the
Mm,
interesting thing is you can add an override to the pattern, so you can just have the same hero that you want to use 10 times, but in one place it should be a different CMS item. You can do
yeah,
that.
and I will show it because it's really nice because that's the crazy and flexibility that you get. Here, I'm basically using the arrow banner and I put all this default value here, like refresh and so on. But
Yeah,
here I have what we call the override, and I put rules based on which field I allows my editor to be able to override. So
yeah,
if, for example, here this is more technical stuff, like configuration that we need absolutely to be able to connect like something special into your old system,
yeah,
don't touch it. And then they can override the title. And then here you get basically choose ring and then arrow container. I think it's this one. And
Yeah,
voila.
you have the pattern inside, and so you can change refresh.
And then here, poof, it's automatically changing. And that's really cool because you have everything on
And
live editing. And
you
then
actually see the live website. It's just the same
Yeah.
SDK. It's not
the
like
same.
you have to implement some preview thing. No need.
Yeah. No
Nothing.
need. It's literally the application that's running live inside, and then you can try it on mobile. You can literally play with it. And the last thing that would be interesting to show, I think, it's the data connection. And I will show
Yeah,
you
exactly.
this one. So here I create a pattern. Oh, I create maybe click on something. That I
Oh,
should
what
not.
happened?
Me.
The
because
demo
my-
effect.
That's me. Okay, so I have a pattern here, basically, where I link to Storyblock. Okay, so let's edit it. Inside this pattern, I create here an item. I put a loop, and that's really, I think it's the first time that I see something like, yeah, they think about the loop. We need to display multiple items. We don't want to reproduce it. So basically here, with the loop component, you can loop to multiple data. Okay. So
Yeah,
here,
if you click on the loop, you can see the data source. Yeah, exactly.
and
Here we go.
I can see the data source. And here you can see I'm looking for the story. So if here I go back, I can connect to the data type that I set up before. Okay. And then here I can literally come and say, okay, I would like to connect this one. So let me disconnect, for example, this one.
Yeah, you can do it from scratch. Yeah, exactly.
Voila. And then here, let me select. Here I can look for multiple ones. So I have this one. But if I would like to create a new one, I can select the data type that I would like. So for example, here, let's take the products, a list of products, for example. Okay. I have back the default value that I put from my data type. I want 3 items. Okay. Then I save it. Okay. So then based on that, I create it. So now I can select it here. I select it. Then I have access to what is created and fetched automatically. Yes, I will disable it, Elias.
Yeah,
And here-
Elias, he is our this is like the best support because he's basically the dude who built it, and he always helps us. Awesome. So here you go.
And voila, you just select the edge on the array that you would like, and then you can go on the first component to decide how you would like to map your data.
Yeah, so
Okay.
show that. So let's
And then
connect the
here,
name.
and then here we say, okay, I want to.
Oh, you probably need to connect the loop item needs to be the product.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have to disconnect. Oh, but you can still do it.
I will connect quickly.
Yeah, you can click on the icon and then on the drop down you select the one you want.
Project,
here we go.
voila.
Yeah.
And then here I get the project, and then here I take.
And so you just go to the first one, and then the loop will take care of the rest.
Yeah, voila. So I have to go back maybe on the first
No,
one.
I think you can just in the node. You probably find the title. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, title.
And now you hit connect, and now it's
connect, and then it gets same thing for the.
Yeah, so now you it doesn't actually go back to the preview ones you selected, because what you can do is you can have 5 data sources connect to the props, like 5 different ones. You can do any crazy thing. You can get your title from Storyblock, your description from Sitecore, and your image from Cloudinary with this.
And then connect this one, and then the href just to select here. We go here. We say I want the product, I want the edge, I want this one, and I want this one. And let's just put this ID.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we save, and then we publish. What did I create? What did I create?
Elias, what's happening? Help us.
No, I know.
That's interesting.
I know. It's because I don't respect the rule, and it's something in my code because I changed too much stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because I was too much playing, so no big deal. So it's okay. So I will.
I think if you just don't save it, and then it should go back to what you had before.
It will go back on the stuff because
it should just work.
I put too much change. So
yeah,
maybe I will keep this
if
one.
you wanted to, you could do it. Yeah, so you can disable the page interactions with the little icon on the right next. Yeah,
this one. Yeah.
And now refresh it, and then the links don't work. Then it's always just only editing.
Voila.
Exactly.
And then
there you
here,
go.
I can play on the stuff. And for example, if I would like to go back on the pattern here, I would like to edit here and say, okay, I would like to display 3, for example. I save. Boom.
There we go.
Go and go and take the data directly from. And here I save it, and then voila. And then, for example, I go to Storyblock to show you like the nice thing, because it's not saving the data, it's saving the ID. So here I put the updated. I save it here. I publish on Storyblock. I come here. I do refresh. And maybe I have the cache. I put the cache.
Well, what makes this interesting is like generally with the bigger project you get, the bigger organizations, they actually have teams that deal with data that is very important. Like we've had companies where they say we this is for all the 60 markets. This is the hero with the right copy for every market that you get to use, and there's a whole team of people dealing with it. And they have another team of people dealing with search results of what comes out all the time in the right order. So the content editor here just gets the right things from these teams that work in their tools, which means you just had to go save and publish in Storyblock, right?
Yeah.
Normally, you'll have in a big organization a team that deals with that. So the content editor is in uniform, literally designing the page with the design system and connecting to the right problems and the right data. And you were just changing your pattern on a component and stuff. That looks quite complex. But
Yeah.
generally, what you do when you have such a big website with big teams, the architects set up all the patterns of how it connects, and the content editor just puts them in and then is allowed to override a few things and then goes for it. Right? I want 5 rather than 3 items, or put this left and right, because on the left item, you can actually drag and drop. So the refresh hero that you have here can actually just be dragged and dropped above, let's say, this offer
Yeah.
pattern. Right?
Yeah.
It's like you can do lots of those kind of things.
Yeah, that's really nice because you can really play on moving. No, I
And
think I have to keep it like that. And hero. So if I
yeah,
take
you have
this
some
one,
container stuff going on.
voila,
Yeah, there you go.
boom,
And
voila.
so this is so the content editor gets a lot of freedom because in the override, what you can do is say, make the background red. That's just a variable that you have in your design system that the content editor can change. But the designer and the developer set that up. So it's not like Builder.io where you can do anything and just destroy your website. It's actually built for bigger systems where you have things in place that make it work. And the developers don't have to worry too much about all the code to connect stuff. Because this is the one thing that Booba hasn't shown. Like all this data source stuff, if you wanted to, if you can you click on next to publish on the 3 items? Yeah, this
Yeah,
one, and then do view source.
I love this file.
And so this is like literally all the IDs that connect, right? But if you scroll up, and you click on Edge Enhanced, now Uniform has done the enhancing for you.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to do that in your code. So Uniform has actually queried all the things, and it will be stored on Fastly on a CDN in the edge next to you. So if you're in Belgium, all the stuff that we just added here is actually stored on the CDN on the edge close to you. So actually what that means is that you have pages with like 15 sources, right, from different CMSs that load in 50 milliseconds. And we've basically spent 6 months on cache purging. So when you save inside Storyblock, you can actually very specifically say, keep this for 30 minutes or 20 seconds or all of that. So our cache is always up to date, and it works with ISR as well with the latest next stuff, which means you can build a fully SSR website where everything is cached on the edge and you don't have to code your own connections at all.
So here,
So yeah, exactly. And so this is our latest thing that's not really out yet, but we're just teasing it a bit here. But what I love, especially for my colleagues that are watching, you guys took this thing and did stuff I had no idea you would do, and it's just awesome.
yeah, literally we like the tool and read the interaction that we have with the team. We can create a lot of stuff, and basically our goal is to we have a use case that we saw on client and so on. And with Maurizio, we are like every time, okay, this use case, could we do it in uniform, or what is the limit? And every time we come with like ID, discuss with the team, like, okay, you should do it like that, and then we try. And the goal for us really like to be, I will not brag, but like we are kind of ready to know, okay, if you need help, we try a lot of stuff to be sure like we can really help you and so on, to deliver really a fast website and
Yeah.
with a good team.
And so what are the parts that Uniform helped you with in your process?
I will say like first, the UI. So the composition of the page, it's really important because every client that we meet, they want to be able to change everything, move everything, and so on. Like, you're like, yeah, but we don't want to give you all this power. You will not use it. Yeah, they want it, and most of the time they don't use it, but they want it in case of. So okay, we
Exactly.
have to build it. And the second part, I will say, is data type, because then now we can really connect everything, and with the pattern, we can make reusable blocks. So, and we can really push the same logic that we put with Mitosis, creating all this layout on component, and then think, okay, for all this layout, what is the data that should be connected to it? And if you want to switch, you switch, and then just the editor come, kind of like Lego. That's how we like with a uniform. You
Mhm.
use like like young people like come like, hey, we have building blocks, let's play with it, and then you play with it, and people enjoy creating stuff. But voila, that's really the two most important stuff, I would say.
Yeah, there's another thing that I would add, which I really like, which is not technical at all, but it's more on the approach, which is you need to have discipline somewhere. And this somewhere is we give you all the building blocks to be able to do all the things that you need to do, but you need to be very clear on what it is that you're trying to do, like the way you design your content,
Yeah.
the way you know where your content is stored, the way you know how you design the flow, where this content is coming from, where you're transforming, and how you're going to present it on which channel and how. This requires proper analysis. I know that it's become a bit of a bad word, because with this whole trend about agility, people have the wrong impression that they can do
Yeah.
whatever you want,
Exactly.
they want whenever they want. But it's not actually like that. It's about you apply the discipline on the things that are important to you, which is your data, your business. Once you've done that, you don't need to take care of all the rest, because it's taken care of. And I find this really, really powerful as an approach.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and but it is a change in mindset, because essentially what we're trying to achieve here is your design and the data that is associated with the design, which component goes where, your two column, how wide is it, all that stuff is design data that lives in the DXE, the uniform. But all your domain data, like your CMS with your heroes or your blog posts or your videos or your DAM system or your PIM, that stuff lives on its own, and it should stay on its own. It shouldn't be contaminated with design data, because then in 10 years you look back, it's, why are all these checkboxes to make something featured and big here? Let's remove one. And then suddenly your website breaks,
Yeah.
right? And so you don't have a future path if you start doing that. And with Uniform or a DXE, at least, you separate it out. And so, to your guys' mind, do you think content editors and developers can be happy together like this?
I think yes, for me, like we, and I will say we should not show them all this complexity,
Oh
like
yeah, we
all the
went
data.
deep, of course.
Well, we went really
Right.
deep, so don't be afraid. You will not touch all these things. You will be only on the composition side, and that's it. And on the
Exactly.
project map, all these things is for us, developer and so on. All these things you will not see it. So it's really for me the good thing. Like they can work together on it. They should not see this complexity. They don't have
Yeah.
to. They just have to focus on how to design and build the perfect page.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Thanks for that. Actually, we have a really good question from Theo here. So, how does the ISR work with the project map included in Uniform website? Do you actually see all pages? So, Theo, there's a few ways
I can
this can
share.
work. By the way, before I answer that, I have to put this on. But because this is important, because I'm here, because I've worked at agencies like these guys for many, many years, and content editors and marketers were always so upset with the developers. And with this, we're kind of solving that problem at least 80% better than you had before, right? And you don't have to ask Booba, can you make me this page and connect to these 5 sources for me? Because he will say no, because he's in a meeting. You know what I mean? And now you can do it. But let's go back here. So with ISR, so ISR is basically an incremental rebuild of your page. If, let's say, if it's in a cached state or in SSG side, like statically rendered. And so the project map, um, basically you have multiple options in the Uniform SDK. You can actually query everything based on the project map, or you query things based on just a slug or an ID. And when you hit publish on a page, you can add a webhook specifically to that page, to that composition, and just tell for cell or whatever who does that to just that route needs to be revalidated. And that's how you can do ISR. That you have to set it up a little bit in Next, of course, based on how they want to do that. But you can also just put a webhook that rebuilds everything. Or there's multiple different ways, because ISR in the new Next is going to be very smart, right? With all the cache revalidate stuff, with the app directory. So we'll have to see how that pans out. But currently for my own website and for the uniform website, if we hit publish on one page, it will fix up the edge with cache. It will revalidate certain bits that you changed. And then we have a webhook that goes to Vercel that says, just rebuild that little page for us, and it will do it. And you can choose even now to set ISR up in such a way that when every hour, it might revalidate automatically, no matter what, if a user comes. And that's pretty interesting for when you run this thing in SSR, but Uniform just caches the thing. But then every hour when somebody comes, it might just revalidate that thing if you want to. So there's many, many options.
Hey, Philippe.
Oh, we're later in the stream. More people are coming in.
Yeah.
So, Philip, you just missed some magic, man. But you'll have to watch back the stream, unless you've been here for a while. I don't know. So we're going over by half an hour because I'm so excited about what you guys are doing. Are there any last words, Mauricio, on your end?
No, I think we really set it on. We're looking forward to continue this path together. I think it's really promising. So the next step for us is really to test drive this on a real hardcore, high load, high complexity project. Exactly. So we're really looking forward to it.
Awesome. And Buba, for you?
I will say thank you. Really well to work with the team. It's really enjoyable to have these smart people. We come every time with a kind of like edge case, and every time you have a solution, and it's really cool to have it. And shout out to the Uniform team, because you're doing really a great job. And also like for all other people on the open source, like also Eliane on the Astro team and so on, we are really like all these things happening. And the front end is moving again.
Oh yeah, things are happening.
Maybe too fast for some people, but it's fun to watch.
Exactly.
It's going crazy, but I love it.
Thank you guys for showing my own product in a way I've never seen it work. And that is cool, because the fun stuff is all the stuff you were just showing, all the advanced things. That's really new, also for us. And so we're learning of how other people that have big brains utilize the tools that we give, because we kind of have like, okay, this is the master plan. This is the idealistic version of how you do content. Go. And you'll see 100 different ways. And some won't work and some will. And that's when we learn. And that's why we love doing these kind of streams and working with you guys all the time, just to see what is the thing we need. Because the meaning is that this works at scale. So you can just throw this against your biggest customer and it should just work. Right. And that's how it's built. And so sometimes the startup is a little bit higher, right? There's a little bit more because it is built for the big scale. But you guys flew through that like it's nothing. So that's very cool.
Just fun.
So as a last thing, where can people find you?
So for me, I'm on Twitter on B_B for RRY. So you can find it on the stuff, or if not, Mirai.io. It's the.
Yeah, let me just put that on.
It's our website and so on. So
if this is a really good Belgian agency, people. You're gonna have to come in.
If you have any question, or I will not say you will find directly a project directly first, but if you have any question, you need help like brainstorming and so on, shoot us a mail. We'll be really happy to discuss with you and see how we could maybe help. No string attached, it's just like discussion with us and see. And if you have project or anything you would like to some strong hand, just come to us. We'll be really happy to help you. It's really nice.
So if we get any leads, we'll show them your way, especially around here, around France, Belgium, all that stuff. So do you guys also work like more internationally, or is it mainly Europe nowadays?
We have Europe, but we work on the US. So voilà, we have some client on the US. So
awesome.
We are trying to expand a bit on the US, I will say, but it's complicated market also. But voilà. So
yeah, it's a different market, and they have different ideas about agility, for example, working together.
Yes.
It's very different. I've had that experience where you just say, you see it in when agencies do marketing, right? They do an Instagram post about let's work agile, and in New York, that's a perfect post, and in Europe, they're like, I don't care. I've
Yeah.
done that for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's very interesting to see how that works with agencies. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to
Definitely.
see you guys grow and do more together. This is awesome.
Thank you. It's really nice.
All right. This is the longest stream we've had, and I think Mauricio, you have the last word.
Oh, really? Oh, that's big
Yes.
pressure on me. Thanks a lot for having us. Improvise.
There
No,
you
but
go.
really,
Perfect.
thanks a lot for giving us time, and thanks a lot for those who attended.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and speak soon. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.